Hey everybody, Steve here at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Buffalo, New York. And before I leave today, I just wanted to show you this very beautiful and very unusual private mausoleum. It's one of the most popular and most famous mausoleums here in this cemetery. And there's a reason for it. It's because it tells the very sad story, the very tragic story of a young man who died because he was heartbroken over the love of his life. And I didn't know about this mausoleum, so thank you so much, Kurt Dion, for letting me know about this. Kurt knew that I was coming here today, and so he sent me a message giving me a heads up not to miss this very famous mausoleum. And it's a sad story that I think most of you will be very interested in hearing. I mean, have any of you been here before? I mean, some of you may already know the story, but for those of you who don't, let me tell you what I know. Right behind these trees here is the entrance gate. So it's one of the very first monuments you see as soon as you come in through the gates, and it's very unique and hard to miss. So let me go read the plaque to you first. Well, actually, let me show you. This has glass windows on it so you can see inside. Now, I think my reflections are, I'll try to get my reflection out of the way. This is the young man who died when he was only, I believe, 36 years old. So, I mean, he wasn't a child or anything, but he was still pretty young. And the angel that you see above his head is supposed to represent the woman he lost, the love of his life, who he just couldn't live without. The woman on the right is his mother, and the man here to his left is his father. This was a very wealthy family, and let me read you the plaque here. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the story. It says, "These statues represent Mr. and Mrs. John Blocher standing beside their only child who died following a year's illness. The statue above is imaginative. The tomb is beneath floor of monument." So I read this story after Kurt sent it to me. I read his Find a Grave Memorial page bio explaining how this tomb came to be and how these statues came to be. I mean, this is very unusual. You don't see something like this every day, that's for sure. At least I don't. So it turns out that the son, who Nelson, was single, had never been married, lived at home, I believe, with his parents, and at some point they hired a maid. The son fell madly in love with the maid. I don't know if he told the parents that they wanted to get married, but the parents were completely against the relationship. Back in the day, different classes didn't mix at all. So not only did the family discourage it and didn't want that to happen, didn't want the two to be married, but the father sent the son on a business trip. And while he was away in Europe on a business trip, the maid suddenly disappeared. So when the son returned, the father and mother said, well, one night she just disappeared and all she left behind was her Bible and no forwarding address. We have no idea what happened to her. I'm sure you're all probably thinking what I'm thinking, that the father and mother probably paid off the maid to leave and to cut all ties with their son in return for whatever amount of money she was paid. And now I'm just assuming this. It doesn't say that in the bio, but it does say that she mysteriously disappeared, leaving only her Bible behind. So the son was distraught, couldn't understand why she would leave and not leave any contact information. And so all he had was her Bible, but he spent the next year searching for her, trying to find her, and I'm assuming she didn't want to be found, also probably realizing that this was a situation that just couldn't work between them. And the story goes that he was so distraught, he was so heartbroken that the love of his life had left, that he fell ill, and after a year of being sick, he finally died. The mother and father, of course, were distraught, not to mention guilty for what they had done. Even if they didn't pay her off, even if she just left on her own, the mother and father completely discouraged the relationship and would have known that she left because of that. So, being a wealthy family, the mother wanted some type of a memorial to her son, and the father was retired at this point and spent I believe, the rest of his life creating this monument to their son. And they wanted the whole world to know this story. Now, I'm not sure why they would want the world to know the story, but maybe they just wanted the world to know how much they love their son. Very sad, I think, that parents just are, no matter what generation you're from, parents just are never able to accept who their children might fall in love with. Or at least that's how the story goes. Who knows if it's all really true or if this is just folklore that people have made up after seeing this unusual memorial to a lost son. But whatever the true story is, this was their way of dealing with their grief, creating this monument to his life and to his memory. And they sure did a beautiful job. And I think I've seen in videos, I've seen other tombs like this that have glass where you can see inside, but this is the first one I've seen in person, and it's pretty amazing. So if you want to read more, go to his Find a Grave Memorial page, or I think the link that Kurt sent me was actually a Roadside America link. I love it when grave sites and memorials and monuments like this become tourist attractions. Why not? I mean, obviously these people wanted to be remembered. They wanted their story and their son to be remembered, so it's not disrespectful at all. I know some people say, let them rest in peace. Well, who wants to be forgotten? I don't think anyone does. So they're resting in peace. They just have lots of visitors remembering them and their story. What's wrong with that? It'd be interesting to know how many people actually visit this tomb each year. I bet a lot. Now, this is the same cemetery. In fact, the reason I came to this cemetery was to visit the 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore, who's laid to rest kind of on the other side of the cemetery. You go across, there's a little creek, and you go over a bridge, and then it's that way. So he's over here, and I came in the back gate, I think. So this monument here is more prominent than the former president's. This is right inside the front gate, and just to the left, and has a much larger sign pointing to the direction of this monument than the president does. I saw one tiny little sign for the president that was almost illegible. This week I want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to my newest channel supporters, Jay Morgan, Sandy, Cliff Sheffield, Sarah Magdalena, and Kepper MN. Thank you all so much for your very kind and very generous donations to this channel using YouTube Super Thanks. And thank you too to all of my monthly Patreon supporters. All of your donations are very appreciated and mean a lot. So have any of you been here to visit the Blocher's tomb? Were you familiar with the story? Share your stories down below in the comment section if you'd like. As always, thanks for joining me on another road trip to the past. And until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.